Welcome everybody to Incubator Weekly today. We've got AJ with us today. How's it going, AJ?
Good.
You recently did a marathon 9-hour stream, maybe close to 10. What were you working on?
Proposal web app.
Yes. So that is the topic today. We are going to do a demo of this. We're gonna. I've sectioned off a little 5-minute clip of the video, the 9-hour video. So if people are interested, they can watch the whole 9-hour video. But if they just want the summary of it's done, and this is how it works, and then we'll go over your proposal a little bit, and then I'll talk about how I plan to use this, and yeah, we'll go from there. So let me get my screen share ready.
And I do also now have it up locally again. So if we want to talk about it and have me click on buttons live,
Okay.
I can share.
Perfect. Let me, yeah. Okay. First of all, I guess I'll just take a brief look at the code. This is on github.com/-hive. The repository is called -gov.js. That's the repo name. And as the JS suggests, this is a JavaScript library for preparing, submitting, and paying for, doing the whole thing, dash proposals from a web browser.
Zoom that in a bit.
Web app. So this is the -gov.js library. So when I asked you to work on this, I asked for a library. I understand through watching the videos that it's a little difficult to make a library out of this because there's a lot of handshaking going on and business logic and developer user experience issues. So I've actually used this. I copied and pasted it into a web app that I was making. And I asked if you could update it so that it has ESM modules and mainnet support. You went full steam ahead and built a. It's not a reference app in the sense that it's not like complete, because it is feature complete. I've seen it. We're going to see it in a minute. But this being a library, people can download this library and make their own web app if they want to change the way it's presented, the user experience. So I'm just obviously not going to go through this code. I just want to give people a rough idea. 637 lines of code. You got a single export of -gov that has a bunch of utility methods on it. Do you want to describe this library and what it does?
Yeah, at the high level, it's called -gov because it is dealing with governance objects. Now, I don't know what all the use cases of governance objects are. We know one of them is proposals, but it's -gov because it is surrounding the governance process. And there are two pieces here. There's the library, and then there's the implementation. The implementation I'll probably move into a different repository, as I've done with the other libraries. But the implementation was important to be able to test and make sure, okay, have I abstracted as much as I reasonably can while this stays just focused on governance and doesn't creep into transactions or key management and the other stuff? Because in the ecosystem, many people are not going to be using our full suite of libraries. They're going to be using the legacy code that they have, and then they're going to be wanting to bring in, say, -gov. And I didn't want -gov to be dependent on the rest of our SDK, because then that means that they got to, pull in two SDKs. So this will work with any other -SDK. I mean, there's only really one other SDK, but other than ours. So anyway, that's the implementation side is where all of the business logic is. That's where it does some of the key management, or all of the key management. All the key management is done in the implementation side.
And we're looking at that right now, right?
You're looking at the HTML
Yep.
The proposal app.js is where all of the JavaScript logic is for that. It's the very bottom file in your file picker on the left.
Okay. So this is the HTML file that we'll be looking at in a minute here, the rendered version of this. So
Yeah.
472 lines of HTML gives you a full web app. It obviously does import. It imports the proposal app library from proposal app.js, and this looks like some HTML helpers. Is that right? Is that
So
your
what I've done there is the application, the implementation is the proposal app.js, and it's assigning it to the window so that the click handlers can have access to it. Because
what do I need to push to get back to that code? I
I
think
don't know. Oh,
here
it's
we go. There we go.
upper, yeah, upper left. There you go.
All right, proposal app.js. Let's take a look at this. This is the
Yeah.
implementation. So this is how you use the library, which is separate. That's the separate -gov.js, right?
Yeah, and one important thing that has happened between in the last 2 months is that Node has now fully adopted ESM, and it will be published in version 24. It's experimental in version 22. So for the last 10 years, Node only had partial ESM support. It didn't follow
ESM
the spec.
ECMAScript modules basically means JavaScript modules native to the browser and Node and lots of different
Yeah.
environments for anybody that's not aware.
Yeah, so one thing that we'll do uh, sometime within the next couple of months is we'll change everything out to being ESM, because the goal before was that this should work in the browser and in Node without any transpilation. And the reason for going with old style JavaScript is that is compatible with both Node and the browser, albeit with a little bit of clumsy stuff you have to do on the library side, but not really much clumsy stuff you have to do on the implementation side. Now that ESM is fully supported both in Node and browsers have now matured. So browsers introduced ESM support back in March of 2023, and now Node introduced it in March of 2024. So now we've got enough time that that's matured that it makes sense that to move it over. That way, there's some of the typing features that were a little cumbersome if you were using the common JS modules that work in the browser and in Node. The typing is better with ESM because of the way that some of the package mangling that had to happen on the library side is simpler on the ESM side. Anyway, so that's why there's both window things that are coming from the window and things that are being imported. Stuff that comes from the window obviously is compatible with every generation of JavaScript that's ever existed. The new stuff, it had broken compatibility, but they finally completed the shims to make it so that things can work nicely together. So that was a little bit of technical background as to why there's primarily we were working with the old system before. So the old system was universal, whereas the new system was not yet universal.
So what you're saying, if I could summarize that, is you've got a few different objects that you're sticking onto the window, that it's getting it from the HTML file, and that's because these libraries that we've written before they were written with the old style, compatible with
since 1995.
Yes, and what you're saying is this library that we have here, -gov.js, is pure ECMAScript module compatible, ESM compatible, but the libraries that it depends on are not. So you're sticking them on the window. Got it.
Yeah. Well, the implementation will depend on it. So, for example, if you were using the legacy -SDK, then you would be importing that here.
Right. Okay. All right. So I think we've had a pretty good preview of the. Let's take a look at the package JSON just so that people can see that overview, and then So very few. Yeah.
There's no dependencies for the -gov library itself. It is completely standalone. It will work with the legacy SDK or the new SDKs. But there are dev dependencies for the implementation. But like I said, those will probably move over because I will create a proposals.digitalcache.dev digitalcache.dev, and I will move this proposal app over to there as a reference that anybody can copy it and then make it pretty and make it work better.
Okay. All right. So you're looking at yourself here. This was that 9 hour stream that I was talking about. We're looking at the last 7 minutes. So we'll go ahead and play that real quick. Let me know if the sound comes through.
Sound is not coming.
I need to figure out how to do this because this is not the first time this has happened. So
If you give me the link, I think I can patch my sound through. Let me check real quick.
Let
Audio.
me send that to you. And I'll actually just send this in the main comments here, so anybody can see where this is time stamped and look at the chat to find this video.
So I'm going to switch this over. You'll have to give me a thumbs up or thumbs down because I won't be able to speak because I'm going to switch it from mic to browser output.
Okay. And am I just are you going to be on your own screen, or are you going to share a screen separately? Adding this to the stage. You're on the stage. Okay, now I'm not hearing the video coming through. No sound so far. Nope. I don't hear it anyway. Okay, so let's just go back to you, AJ. Can you?
Okay, now you should be able to hear me again.
I can hear you now.
Yeah,
okay.
So I had the correct audio device selected. I don't know why it wasn't.
That's okay. We'll just people have a link to it, so they can check that out. Instead of doing that, can you open up your? Yeah, let's open it up and just do it real time.
Okay.
We can even submit a testnet proposal right now if that works. So.
Yeah. Let me. Oh, whoops. Okay. So there's a minor issue with the testnet stuff that's probably going to prevent it from working at the moment.
Let's do mainnet then. You've already tested that. We won't actually go through and submit it unless you feel confident enough to debug it right now. But
yeah, I don't want to debug it right now. It's a typo in a variable name on the testnet code, but it's I don't want to debug it live. Let me just go through. So first thing is the way that the proposals work is by block. So it's not by date, it's by block. But there is a little bit of gaming that happens with the blocks. So you'll notice that blocks will go like it'll take 15 minutes, and then it'll go 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes. And that's because basically there's a big group of miners that what they're doing is they put pause on all of their miners for half an hour, let the difficulty go down, and then they press resume on all of their miners, and then they reap it really quickly. And so that's how they're getting their profitability. So with that, the accuracy of the date has gone down from a resolution of about 3 minutes to a resolution of about 20 minutes. But still, that's a pretty decent resolution. So 6 months in the future, we can know within about 20 minutes when the vote deadline and the pay, etc., will be. So what we have here is 3 dates that are estimated based on the last, I think it's 25,000 blocks. So it takes the last 25,000 blocks, does an average, and then based on that, it's projecting in the future what date and time is likely to be that the blocks land. So we have the submit after date, which maybe there's a better name for this, but this is basically these proposals will be dated to start at this date. And then the expectation is that the vote is going to happen within 20 minutes of this time. And the time resolution is just set to 15-minute increments because showing more than that is somewhat deceptive because it's not that accurate. And then the pay date is similar. So It's rounding up for the submit after, it's rounding down for the vote deadline, then it's rounding up for the pay date in terms of trying to get as accurate as it can within that 15-minute window. So that's just showing these are the next proposal periods is what we're looking at. So if I say I want to start at the very next proposal period, a lot of times you want to do that. Sometimes you don't. The reasons that you might not want to do that is because you may have what I call the lame duck period. Like, for example, there's only 4 days left before the voting deadline. So you might actually want to start your proposal at the next one, since, unless it's,
you could get it in the current voting cycle, but with only 4 days left of voting, it's not wise.
yeah. So anyway, here, this is just the same visual representation that I had done for the command line, but adapted to the web, where we show, okay, here's your voting window. We can make that, you could do 1 payment, you can do 6 payments, you can do whatever, but it's going to show you this is your window that you're going to submit after this time, and you're going to get paid up until this time. So that is your proposal window that you're looking at.
So most times people would probably have a start period of either 1 or 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So that's that part there. Then the amount that you want to get paid for each period. So say it's 10 dash or 100 dash or 200 dash or whatever it is. There's the total dash that you'll get if it passes for each of those periods. Mm-hmm. Then you have to have a URL safe proposal name. So this was the proposal name that I had used last. You need to have a URL. Can be any URL, doesn't need to be Dash Central. If it's not Dash Central, then Dash Central will just pick it up, and then you'll be able to claim it. And by the way, you can claim using either the Dash message tool that we just published for JavaScript, or the Dash message tool that is already available on webinstall.dev that's written in Go. Either of those tools work with the Dash Central and other types of Dash voting. So I'll put that link in the thingamabob here.
Okay.
Bloop. All right. Then you have your payment address where you want the money to go to, and that's enough that you can see a preview of, if you wanted the technical information for what does this look like. You've got the proposal JSON. Now, something that's different about this from previous tools is that the epochs are actually noted in the code with a watch out, this is dangerous, people lose money, because
I think you meant epic, though, by the way. I'm just kidding.
Whatever.
It's an inside joke. People make fun of me for calling it epic. So epoch, yeah, you got the nerd lingo going on. So go ahead.
Yeah, so it doesn't make sense that it was ever down to the second, because it's, I don't know how the other tools did it, but they kind of just picked a random time in the past and a random time in the future, which doesn't really make a lot of sense, because the proposal is based on blocks. It's not based on time. And right. So for the start and in epic, what we do here is we just calculate the epic based on the, did you just get me to call it epic?
Sorry.
Whatever. So we have the start and end are based on the block time. So what this means, and I actually am not entirely sure what this means, but I think it means that you will not get paid for any activity that happens before the start epoch, and you will not get paid for any activity that happens after the end epoch. Now we're going to see with my proposal, because my proposal had a start epoch that was future dated. So I submitted it at 6 a.m. and it was not set to start until 6 p.m. So the question is, what happens in terms of the voting? I think the votes count at any time, but it's just that if people had voted on it and I had actually submitted the start epoch before the voting window had closed, and it got enough votes that it could have been paid, that it would not be paid. Technical detail about the time window, but I think that's what that means. Anyway, the point that I was getting at, the short of it, is that our start epoch and end epoch are based on the widest reasonable window of the period, which means 3 days after the last payment until 3 days after the final payment. That means that if something were to happen, like for example, the chain halt were to happen again, there could be a little bit of leeway so that you would still get that final payment if that final payment somehow got delayed. Right the day before there was a chain halt, and then there wasn't enough time for it to rubber band back to its normal time increments. I mean,
Yeah.
that's highly unlikely to happen, but that's what this does. So there's as far as I'm aware, and somebody please correct me if I'm wrong, there is no technical or practical reason to have a random start epoch or a random end epoch. It makes the most sense to base it on the block times of when people would be voting. So
Yeah, it's just one of those implementation decisions I think that somebody made to give it some kind of time-based estimate. But you're right that the proposals. This was my understanding is that you basically want to bracket your start and your end epoch to something in between the super blocks that gives you a reasonable buffer, so that the actual payment is happening based on the super blocks, but those epochs are supposed to just kind of approximate how many payments you'd get if you spread them out, like say 3 months apart, and if you bracketed them properly, then you'll get 3 payments. I think that's
yeah.
what you just said, though. So
Yeah, so the epochs, you don't have to worry. You're not going, if you were to recreate the same proposal and you knew what date you had created the proposal on, you could actually tweak the library to give you back the same information. So you don't have to worry about, oh, I was working with the library and it turns out that I had a bug in my implementation, and now, oh no, that money's lost. Not the case, because you can idempotently recreate the same proposal JSON as long as you have a very approximate timestamp, within the same couple of days. So that widens it from, it has to be, you have to have that exact second stored somewhere or a screenshot of it, to as long as you have a rough idea of like it was this day or that day, you can just recreate the proposal JSON for 1, 2, 3 days, and then you'll get, it'll get the right thing. So that's that. That's just technical thing that was before was risky and now is not. Then the collateral. Let's see if I can get. I'm going to export something over here with my wallet. I'm going to export. Looks like this one. Okay. All right, so I just generated a WIF that has the amount that we need on it. And then you can see here it's filling in WIF info. So again, not something you need to know, just technical details for debugging or for those interested. So this is how many Satoshis make up this dash. And so it's 1.00 dash plus 3,600 dust. So that's enough to pay the fees. That meets the burn criteria. And then we can do a preview, and then it runs and says, hey, it passes master node validation, which is actually kind of funny because it shouldn't, because this proposal name is a duplicate. But there may be some additional checks that the master, or maybe they don't. Maybe you're allowed to have duplicate submissions. I guess that's just something that we believed before and hadn't tested until just now.
Maybe we can test that on testnet and see what happens if you do a exactly identical proposal name.
Yeah, because this is actually communicating with the master nodes, and it's saying, here is the G object that I'm going to submit. What do you think about it?
It's like it's literally the RPC gRPC check,
yep.
G object check, right?
Yep. That's what it's doing. And so if I were to hit submit, then we would see what was in this video. So let me see if I can just fast forward this a little bit. Okay, that was maybe too far. I don't know what exactly.
You'll get there.
Okay. Because we could just watch this part and then you'll see. Fortunately, it was actually pretty quick. I probably happened to submit it right when Oh, there. Okay, so let me back up just a little bit here. I probably managed to submit it right when the adversarial worker nodes were doing their pause and resume, and they were in a resume phase, because it can take up to 15 minutes when they're in their pause phase of the game, and then when they're in the resume phase, it's like super quick block times.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that one I had already. Oh, that's because I did it once before. Okay, so we should see this. Okay. May not have had enough confirmations yet.
Oh, I'm hearing the sound now.
Let me see. Is there something else that's got confirmations? All right, get address balance. Yeah, so I was waiting for it to get confirmed. You can't use a instant send transaction for a proposal like you can with most things, because I believe the proposal system was created before the instant send system was created.
Well, it is an instant send. All transactions are instant send by default, but it doesn't the proposal system doesn't recognize instant send as being confirmed enough to recognize it. So
yeah, it
does wait for one block.
Yeah, it has to be in the pool.
Okay.
All right, passes validation. Great. And I'm just going to go there we go.
Diggs, by the way, 7 says, what's up?
Submit proposal. Start now. Okay.
So it does log it pulls the network. It's that checking again every 5 seconds is looking for the block to confirm, one block confirmation. Yeah, so one of the things we did here is it fixed another one of the bugs in the Dash Core implementation. The Dash Core implementation actually sends the transaction before it's ready to send the G object. And so this creates a situation where people in the past had lost money. And so what we do instead is we run all of the buildup and all of the checks and all of the signatures, because you don't actually need to know you don't actually need to have the transaction published to the blockchain to know what its ID will be when it goes into the blockchain. So we actually do the signature and ID phase ahead of time, so that we know that everything is in concert, everything is as valid as it can be checked. We know that before we submit the payment. And so what this is doing is it actually submits the payment and the G object at the same time, which means that it has to wait for the confirmation of the transaction payment before the governance object will become valid. And so that's why it's doing this check again, check again, check again, because we are not optimistically assuming that everything was right. We should just go ahead and pay. We're delaying the payment until the very last moment so that we know that everything that could have been checked, signed, etc., is checked, signed, etc. Oh, okay. I actually thought that was after you had paid, and it was waiting for a confirmation on that block. But I'll have to look at that again. It is waiting for the confirmation on the block. But what I'm saying is the check runs before the payment, not after the payment. So in order to do the check, you have to have the transaction ID. And so when we do the check, we actually create the transaction ID by signing the transaction without broadcasting it. Okay, I see. And so it's not until we're ready to do the broadcast that we make the payment. So the governance object broadcast and the transaction broadcast are happening simultaneously, so that we're not having potentially lost money. And that money is burned, so it's gone forever. It's not given back to the community. It's not contributed to the miners or the masternodes. This was in a prior era, so that's just a flat burn. Hopefully in the future that'll somehow be recovered, but right now it's burned. All right, I think I'm gonna hit the hay. Like, sub, follow if you want to.
I will go ahead and give.
So
Wait,
some
on
Mikhail
the thing that
Shenmik
we're talking about.
says, I'm going to use this tool for my next proposal soon. So that actually is a good lead into, unless you wanted to say anything before we left the demo, AJ, I wanted to talk about why I went through the trouble of doing this. And I think that there's a little bit more work that could be done on this.
Sure.
Finish what you were saying with the demo, if anything. Otherwise, I did want to actually mention, yeah. Did you have anything to say first of all?
The one last thing, which is what shows up here. It says success. It may take a few hours to show up on Dash Central, etc. So I want to bring up my proposal.
Yep.
And I'm going to scroll down. I've submitted this proposal twice, so I manually update this. So here's a link to rpc.digitalcache.dev. And you can see here the output. That's weird. Unknown. Oh, because it's dead now. Interesting. Okay.
Hide that.
So this is interesting, and I didn't actually know this part. I think we talked about it at one point, but I know it. So my previous proposal has expired. That isn't committed to the blockchain. So now the previous proposal object is gone. And so now it says unknown governance object. And over here, my new proposal, it shows all of this, but this is just in memory in the master nodes. It does not exist in the blockchain. But the point that I was making is that once you've had success and the master nodes have accepted your governance object, I have not seen it take less than, I think maybe the minimum amount of time I've seen is 15 minutes. So I don't know if it's based on block or if it's based on something else, but I've seen it take an hour or two from the time that you get the success message until the time that it shows up in the governance object output. So if you run through this and it's not showing up immediately, there's no cause for concern. If you got the success, if it passed the check, if the master node accepted it, you're good to go. But there is just a little bit of a delay that I don't know what that delay is caused by, but it seems to be something more than just a single confirmation of the transaction before it shows up in the governance data. So just be aware of that. That's because that's something that can make you go.
Yeah, I think actually technically what's happening is there is something in the Dash core implementation that says let's wait for 6 confirmations, 6 blocks to present this as a governance object to the network, something like that. So there's the 1 block that you have to wait for the for that burn transaction, and then there's 6 blocks that you have to wait for to see it on the network. So it's not arbitrary. It's actually, sometimes 6 blocks happens in 30 minutes and sometimes 6 blocks happens in 3 minutes. But typically not. Typically it's 6 times 2.5. So anyway, I wanted to now talk about why I did this, why I'm funding this. You're partially funding this on your side as well. We both believe in this application, and personally, I think that the thing that Dash has that's unique to all blockchains, no other blockchain has the ability for developers or marketers or anybody that can add value to Dash, hopefully in the future and near future, merchants even, to request Dash from the Dash blockchain natively without any kind of permission required. I try to help the process. I'm going to try to help the process for developers to submit their proposals. I want to make that as easy as possible, because the best thing that we can do for Dash is get a lot of different people competing for who can add the most value to Dash, whether that's more developers, more marketers, more merchants, whatever that is. I feel like not enough people know about this feature or ability in Dash, and even fewer people that maybe even know about it are willing to go through the trouble to submit the proposals because it requires a multi-step process currently, where that multi-step process involves setting up a full node and all sorts of things. And we don't want to limit people in any way. We want to remove as much of the burden of as many of the barriers as possible to proposing to get funded for certain things. So yeah, I have one thing that I'm seeing that this application does not yet do, but in the pre-call show, or the pre-show call that we had, you mentioned that it's in your plan to add just a QR code that if somebody doesn't have, somebody doesn't have a wallet that they're going to submit a WIF to, we want a QR code that somebody can just scan and say, here's the 1.001 dash payment for the proposal. I'm going to scan that, and the web app's going to do that payment part for me as well, because not a lot of people will know how to get a WIF with 1.001 dash on it.
Yeah, I realized that after the fact. Well,
nor should they be really. People shouldn't really be doing it. I know that you are comfortable with throwing WIFs into applications and things, but it's really probably not the best practice. So
I don't know. We'd have to make that argument separately.
Yeah. Either way, we're going to have the ability to scan a QR code to pay for this.
Yeah, I think what I'll do is I'll just put up a simple wallet, kind of like how I've got the CoinJoin wallet. I think I'll create something like that where there's, you can either put in or generate a phrase, and then you can either put in or receive an index and get the QR code, and just have it be I'm thinking it might be just two separate apps, like step 1, fill out this information. Step 2, either paste a WIF that you have or go load one over here. That just, not that this shouldn't have the QR code directly in it, but just as we come up with so many situations where we need to load an address, I might as well just create a tool that's specifically for the purpose of loading and link that to this. Again, I don't know if I want the tools that I'm creating. They're ugly. They are. I don't want to say.
I like,
okay.
Yeah, I like.
Well, I don't want to say that they're proof of concept, because that sounds like they're incomplete, but they are. Someone else needs to come along and, hopefully we could work together and form a relationship at some point, but somebody else needs to come along and say, hey, I'm a designer. I want a proposal to take AJ's thing and create the design for it. And then somebody else needs to come along and say, hey, I want to implement this design, or, so there's something like that needs to happen, because I'm not going to flesh these out. First of all, I'm not a front end guy, right? Like, I don't do CSS. This is not my strong suit. Like, I'm down at the protocol layer. I'm not going to be up at the CSS layer, but I just want something that's like, okay, as a developer, if you're going to build your own tool, you need to see all the debug information. You need to be able to see, this is what the transaction JSON looks like. Okay, when I use the library, did I get the same result as what's shown in the demo application? Okay, I did. Great. That means that I implemented it correctly. Oh, it looks different. Maybe I passed in some wrong arguments. Maybe I need to submit a bug report because there's some checking that's not happening that should be checked to prevent me from passing in wrong arguments. Do these things look right? And then how are you going to, so this tool, one of the things that it does is it actually saves all except for the WIF. It saves everything in local storage. So if I were to open it up, it actually, let's see, I have to do something to have it show this in there. Let's try this way. Yeah. So in the console, it actually still has all the stuff from the command line, because the command line was just doing console logs. But if we go into application here, and we look in storage, so you can see here, these are my submissions. And so one of the concerns with the Dash Core console has well documented in the forums and even in the code, is people lose their submission data. And something goes wrong, they come back to it the next day, they lost their money. So here, even if something were to have gone wrong, we've got the relevant data is being logged into local storage, so we can go back, we can take a look, we can recreate this, we can make sure that your funds get applied in the right way, you know.
Yep.
And as you know, in as much as we can, because there may be some conditions that there currently may not exist any checks for at all, because up until this point, as far as I'm aware, I could be wrong, I don't think anybody's ever made a proposal outside of Dash Core. I think I'm the first person to ever make a proposal outside of the Dash Core console.
Yeah, and technically, to be completely precise, we are still using Dash Core because your RPC service does do the RPC submit through Dash Core, but right.
Yes. So the RPC translates it from an RPC message to a P2P message, which is then broadcast to a master node that full node is connected to. But none of the processing of the governance object or the transaction, none, the Dash Core console is not used. This does not use any part of Dash Core to construct the messages. Dash Core is only being used as a relay service to say, here are the bytes that need to make it to a master node. Send these bytes to a master node.
Yep. Yep.
Well, okay, there's a little bit more than that in the submission process because of the way that Dash Core is constructed. It actually deconstructs and reconstructs the message. But the point being, all of the work is done client side, such that you could take this JSON object and give it to anyone, and they could take the data hex out of it, and they could submit it to the network by any means, and it will.
Mm-hmm.
It is the data.
And that actually has happened before on a mainnet proposal. Several, I think 2 or 3 months ago, Ash was having some weird issue with his wallet. He submitted a proposal, paid for it. Fortunately, still had the records open on Dash Core, so he could look into his console. But his wallet was not submitting it. He was trying multiple times. He gave me the hex. I actually submitted it from my wallet. I didn't have to pay for it because it was already paid for. But because I had that hex data, I submitted it and it went through fine. So stuff like this has happened before. It's not a big deal, but it is helpful to have that data persisted, at least into local storage. That actually leads me to one other thing that I wanted to talk about. I'm going to share my screen if you're done.
Yeah, go ahead.
And talk about a little bit more of the motivation. So again, there are other tools that do this proposal creation, but they all involve the final step of, okay, now paste these commands into your Dash Core wallet. So now you have this. Unfortunately, I don't have a link to show your latest tool, but we just saw that. The one,
yeah, it's not public yet. I will make it. It was 6 a.m., so I just went to bed. By the time I was done, I didn't bother with the last hour of actually setting up the domain and publishing it to GitHub pages. Yeah.
So a few weeks ago, some of you that are watching may have seen, I did a demo of this little application, proposals.dashplatform.app. The purpose, I asked you, AJ, to make a library for that. I pasted it in. So I was already doing this proposal submission thing before you did your big 10-hour refactor. But what I'm going to do now is, now that it's in an easily ingestible ES module, I'm going to update this little application, see if it still works. And then the idea here is that in your application, you're still assuming that people will then go to Dash Central and fill out the body of their proposal. What I want to do with this application here is I want to give people a way of being able to fill out the body of a proposal and store it on Dash Platform, and possibly also including that metadata that we were just talking about with the hex data and all of that ephemeral data that would otherwise be lost once you closed your Dash core console, or if you cleared your browser history. People could potentially save that metadata onto platform when they're submitting their proposal as well. So there's a few different reasons for wanting to do this. I want to test the just creating an app with the Dash.js SDK. And I think this is a good way to test that. And also, I do want to kind of reorient the community a little bit to at least trying out this alternative of, instead of requiring everybody that wants to submit a proposal to create a Dash Central account as well. Again, trying to remove barriers.
By the way,
Yeah.
the body of my text is on my own blog, which happens to be hosted on GitHub Pages, not because there's anything special about GitHub Pages. Well, other than that I was able to put an automatic hook where every time I add or edit a file, it republishes it automatically. But, aside from that, and it does it with Hugo, so you could do that with other tools. But the reality is that people are going to have to interact with Dash Central if they want to interact with the people who are doing the voting. So it's not about the body of the text.
With one caveat.
Sure.
If Dash Central, if they implemented a feature on their site where instead of just right now, what the default is it will say if you haven't entered in proposal text in Dash Central itself, it'll just have a generic body that says, go see this website, which is the website that is listed in the actual proposal on the network. So like you're saying, technically the proposals can list any website that they want. And that's by design. That's supposed to make it decentralized so that you don't have to rely on any kind of any operator to run this proposal system. Now, what's happened over time is that Dash Central has become the place that people submit their proposals and their proposal body. But if Dash Central, if this idea did take root and people wanted to leverage Dash Platform for this feature, Dash Central could, we could add in the proposal, you could add the contract identity that says, here's the contract. You could put it in like the slug of the URL, for example. You could put the slug, the contract ID, and then other websites like Dash Central could go to that and get the proposal body text as well. And so they could display what's on Dash Platform. So anyway, I don't want to go through all the details. I haven't actually figured out all the details, but I do think it's worth exploring that idea of maybe it makes sense to have proposal data natively on Dash Platform, and then these other sites that present that data can use Dash Platform as a source of truth, not necessarily the source of truth, but a source of truth.
I like that idea. I am kind of, it does seem weird to me that we don't have a official permanence for the Dash governance objects. I mean, I guess maybe we could argue, well, there's no technical reason to, but
or even there is actually no sense of robust permanence for even the body, the proposal text. Like if Dash Central decided, which they won't, I mean, we all trust Dash Central, but if they decided, or for whatever reason, bus factor kind of thing gets in and Dash Central is unavailable, that data is gone. We only have the data of the proposal texts because Dash Central continues to serve us. But again, might be a good idea for Dash Platform itself. I mean, we did build this thing to store data. So if we believe in that idea, then we might want to use it. So anyway, we've gone for 50 minutes now. I know you've got a stop. Actually, I think we're already over your time.
Yeah,
So
I'm joined in on my other meeting. I'm just waiting to unmute myself over there.
okay, so we'll let you go. Any final words though regarding the web app that you've created? And like I can tell you that I'm actually going to line up several developers to use this tool to submit small proposals. I already have at least 4 in mind that I want
Cool.
to direct to using your application. And that will help us test out the user experience. And yeah, there will be more in the future. So I don't want to, we've already gone over time, so I don't want to talk too much about that, but I've got several small proposals that I'm having these developers submit on their own. I don't want to be the gateway to uh,
I
all the
well,
proposals in the incubator. I want them to have their own proposals.
I would like to submit some more proposals. As you know, like, so I had to step away for a little bit because with Incubator changing drastically and the price of Dash going down and just the financial situation, I had to focus on some other clients, and there's some stuff I'd really like to be doing in Dash, but I'm also a little worried if I would actually be able to get funded, which I guess if I'm not, that's fine, because that just means that's not what the masternode owners want. But there's so little money available in the pool right now, and DCG is pulling, I think, 400 Dash supplemental, and so I think some people are choosing not to vote on proposals that may be good proposals because they want to wait for that last minute for DCG to put in their extra 400 to 600. So the an honest question in my mind is, okay, we have this tool. Is there any room for anyone to actually make a proposal other than getting a token payment?
Well, there's not yet or now, and there may be in the future, either due to price increases or something other than that. Like we have increased the treasury allocation before, so there's no reason that we couldn't do that in the future. It's not a topic I'm bringing up at this point, but there will be potential in the future. And then also, people should feel like they can compete with Dash Core Group. There should be nobody in the community that that thinks otherwise, because these are just proposals, right? They're just saying, I would like to do this. And I think even DCG would support other people trying to submit proposals, because that's what's best for the network. Nobody wants a monopoly. It's only become a monopoly to some degree, with DCG taking whatever 80%, 70% of the total funds, because honestly, people have found that DCG is doing a better job than anybody else who's asking for funds. So, but the minute somebody else asks for funds that is providing more value to Dash, then they will get funded. So that's the whole idea of competition, is that the more the competition, the better the value will get. So it might not be something that a lot of people are going to get more than a token payment, like you say, in the near future, but I'm in this for the long haul. And I think that there still is a very bright future where we might have a positive reinforcement cycle. This virtuous cycle has been something that we've seen in the past, where the treasury gets the Dash value, the Dash price goes up, and that makes the amount of purchasing power, I'll say, from the treasury increase, and then more people can submit proposals. That increases our budget. Now, in the past, we've done what I would consider somewhat foolish things with that funding, but yeah, I think the easier we can make it to get more people competing for those funds, the better. So that's my long rambly way of saying, if not now, then potentially in the future, we'll have more funds to work with. And regardless, people should feel like they can propose they can make proposals. Yeah. Yeah. Any other final thoughts before we close out? AJ?
I don't know. My wheels are turning on how could I make some proposals that would both be easy wins all the way around, but also be enough that it realistically, as an American living in a tech city where prices are high, I mean, this, we both have our monthly payment to live in a house is exorbitant.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do we, I don't know. That's something I'm interested in, because I even have a little bit of hesitancy. I kind of like I'm hesitant to submit a proposal because I don't know if the price that I need would fill it, but also I am a little conscientious of I don't want to be competing in a way. I mean, like, there's good competition and there's bad competition. I don't want someone else with good ideas to have to lose for me to win, and I don't want to have to lose for them to win.
Mm-hmm.
And last time I looked at one of the snapshots, I saw one of I think it was one of Shimnick's proposals. Maybe it won at the last minute or something, but it was losing, and I was thinking, well, he's been very well respected. Why? I don't know. There's not enough money in the system right now. It seems like that's a big barrier. I don't know.
This is a
just stream of consciousness, as always.
It is a big topic. It's one that I've raised in the past. I don't like how the treasury system is a zero-sum game. It's not something that I will bring up now because, first of all, we're already out of time, but also it is a controversial topic. So I don't think that there should be an arbitrary cap. That's what I've said that in the past. I will probably say it in the future, but it's not the fight that I want to fight right now. But it is, you're right, that it does create a little bit of an adversarial environment where people are competing in a non-cooperative way, and it does have negative effects. So we'll bring that up and we'll talk about that, I think, another time. But for now, right. I'm happy that you've created this application. I think the fact that there's a library underneath it is great, so that other people can also experiment with creating different user experiences around it. And like I said, the proposal system is Dash's best feature, in my opinion. It's what will create success for the project long term, I believe, as long as we get the right people creating value in this ecosystem. So with that, thank you guys.
One last thing. One sentence. Okay. So I promised that the Dashcoin stuff would be done. It hasn't been done. I didn't give a specific. I said as soon as the MNOs vote for it, it'll be done. That was not true. But that will be coming. So I have not forgotten on my commitment to that. The money is still there for that. I just hadn't taken it because I was working on some other stuff, because I needed to shift focus and let that money for that project accrue for that final month. So that will be coming. I just wanted to put that out there so that, the CoinJoin Dashjoin project is not dead. It is not in an unsuccessful place. I just had to focus on some other things because of the economic shift. So that was all.
I'm not dead yet. Okay, cool. Thanks for joining in, everybody. And we'll leave a comment below if you have a comment about that final theoretical or philosophical discussion as well. And we'll see you next week.